Welcome to this overview of how to migrate your HAZOP or PHA worksheet information from PHA-Pro into BowTieXP, basically to get tabular information into graphical scenarios. So we start with a sample. This one comes out of the box with PHA-Pro. So it's a pre-populated, in this case, HAZOP and LOPA study. This example has 5 nodes based around a typical distillation column, and there's a significant amount of information that we can use to illustrate this tool or this functionality. So you'll see here the familiar PHA-Pro format, but you will notice that the safeguards have not on this occasion been categorized, so we don't yet know whether these safeguards are associated with causes or consequences. So we've made a small customization. We've expanded the existing safeguard categories list, so we've added these categories in and annotated them to show whether they are P for prevention or M for mitigation. We've now shown this category column, and this has already been configured in the sample study. It's just not been shown, so we've shown it and we've populated it with suggested safeguard categories so we can position them either on the left-hand side or the right-hand side of the bow tie diagram. We've created customized functionality that allows you to do a one-click export into a data file, so your HAZOP information is going into a file that we'll develop further. So the data from the HAZOP worksheet is transposed into a familiar Excel format, and we've created customized Visual Basic or a macro that allows you to simply and easily restructure that data. You're not losing the information, you're just restructuring it into a format that BowTieXP will recognize. And the first thing you're asked to do is, do you want to construct bow ties based on deviation or by node? So by node would be a big picture view, deviation is more granular, and we'll see that later in the presentation. The timer indicates how long the migration has taken to execute, and it's going to be in the matter of seconds. It's not going to be hours, so you're saving significant amounts of time and avoiding copy and paste errors. If you want to, you can delete the imported datasheet. You don't need to, but if you want to, you can elect to delete that, and we'll see what that looks like later. So opening up BowTieXP, we've emptied the default bow tie. When you open this up, it gives you a blank bow tie. We've just deleted that to make it look neater. Remember that you need to have BowTieXP Advanced to give you the scrapbook functionality to do this migration. It doesn't work on standard. So opening up Scrapbook, you click on the Open Data Source file icon and open up the Excel file that we've created. Remember that you have to close the file, it won't import if the file is still open. If you didn't delete the imported PHA-Pro data, it will appear in the Scrapbook. It's messy, it doesn't compromise anything in the migration, it's just there taking up real estate, so you can either leave it there or you can delete it. If you delete it, you're simply left with a components that you're actually going to use later in the migration. And simply in this example, you've got a group, a bow tie group per node. So you drag from the scrapbook over to the bowtie group hierarchy in the tree view. So by default, if you allow the migration to continue, it will create individual bowties or hazards for each deviation. So one for no flow, one for high flow, etc., etc. This gives you more focus, and but you will end up with more bow ties in this occasion. So you'll see here that you've got your causes on the left. These are the bow tie threats, prevention, barriers, safeguards, and on the right you've got the HAZOP and actually bow tie consequences. So you'll see here the individual components and the deviation that the threat or the cause belongs to is shown on the diagram. We've also got the safeguard types, which we pre-populated before we did the export from PHA-Pro. So you can see and use that information if you want to do some analysis of how many safeguard categories or types you've actually got. The actions or recommendations from the HAZOP or the PHA are also migrated across, so you get the name, the description, the number, action party, and the target date. So whatever's in PHA-Pro will come across, you don't lose that information. Risk ranking within the PHA or the HAZOP also comes across. In this case, the original PHA-Pro worksheet had 6 categories. You can have up to 8 categories in BowTieXP. The top row shows the inherent or unmitigated risk, and the bottom row shows the residual or mitigated risk. So we've created, in this example, 6 out of the 8 available risk matrices, and these are replicating the colours and the codes used in the PHA-Pro HAZOP sample. The severity text or classifications in PHA-Pro also come across, as does the likelihood scoring and descriptions. So you end up here with, for example, a personnel matrix has 5 severities, 5 likelihoods that you would recognize from your PHA-Pro, and you're also ranking and color coding the risks from red intolerable down to green broadly acceptable, and they will appear on the bow tie diagram. In the sample study, the PHA-Pro sample suggested that there weren't any or many mitigation measures post-event, so we've just simply added this in purely as an example to demonstrate that if you assign a safeguard to be a mitigation category, using our logic, if it has an M suffix, then it will appear on the right-hand side of the diagram associated with the consequence. So here you see the suggested mitigation measure tied to that consequence. So again, you can see whether your protection measures are more prevention or whether they are more recovery. You may decide that you want to have a single view of the node with all the causes and consequences on it. That's an option if you decide to do that. So in this case, you will have a single group, which basically all the nodes are imported into a single group, and you'll have one bow tie or one hazard for each node. Again, simply drag from the scrapbook into the tree view hierarchy, and now you've got single hazards per node, so you've got quite a dense diagram, very difficult to read, but it does give you a sense of, for that node, what are my threats, my consequences, and you can see immediately here there are a number of threats without any prevention measures. None of the consequences of any mitigation measures, so that may need more attention. So because you've assembled everything into a single node, you've got all your deviations, all your causes and consequences together. They all go through the central knot, so it's not apparent of the individual cause-consequence relationships, but we are showing the deviations on the causes and the consequences, and we're going to use that later to give you more focus. And the way that's done is with advanced filtering. So again, you need BowTieXP Advanced to have this functionality. You can create a deviation filter, and that allows you to collapse the diagram, so you're only showing a specific deviation. So in this case, we're only showing causes and consequences associated with no flow. Here we're using the slider bar. You can ghost out the irrelevant or out of filter components, so you're focusing on the no flow elements, but you're also seeing where no flow fits into the bigger picture. So now our no flow diagram within the big node picture looks somewhat smaller, but it's still quite large, and it's large because we've got a lot of text in the consequences. So if we hide the cause or threat description and the consequence description, we get a much clearer, concise diagram that you can focus on. The case overview gives you a breakdown of the hazards, threats and consequences, also the consequence risk scoring, and that can be exported if you want to do any more challenging numerical analysis on it. The register gives you a breakdown of the threats or causes. This is quite useful if you sort it by threat name. You may find that you've got very similar names which are slightly different because of a comma or a dot or a space or something. So this allows you to tidy it up. Similarly, you can tidy up your consequences if they are look the same but slightly different because of rogue characters. But you can also see here how you could sort the consequences by number of times used, by risk ranking, for example. So a really useful way to structure the information. Barrier registers or safeguard registers, same idea, sort it by name to find out where you've got rogue spaces, dots, etc. But being able to sort it by number of times used gives you an immediate sense of dependency. Where am I using most of my safeguards? So here, this high level alarm LAH 120 is used 16 times. That's the most commonly used one, so that's perhaps needs the most attention, the most maintenance, the most monitoring. You're really dependent on that barrier or safeguard. Actions, so all the actions from the PHA-Pro worksheet come across, not just the actions but the action parties and target dates if they have been assigned. You can export this to Excel if you've got a separate action management system. Well, thank you for watching this video. We hope it's been of interest. We believe it's of value. More information is on the website on the screen. Thank you very much.